This video is sponsored by my lovely patrons. If you want to support my work and get access to videos early, as well as vote on patron exclusive polls, become a patron today. Thank you, and now on to the video.
Shopping at Shopping. Pepsi Super Bowl 54 halftime show.
A crummy commercial? Son of a bitch.
What do you picture when I say the word jester? You probably envision a medieval man in a crown and bells headdress holding a scepter performing jokes in front of a king and his court. You might also think of the archetypical Shakespearean fool or even the Joker and Harley Quinn. But you probably don't think of alleged rapist and beloved soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo and his wife Georgina, world-renowned artists like Justin Bieber, Beyonce and Rihanna, and billionaire girl boss Kim Kardashian.
Get your fucking ass up and work. It seems like nobody wants to work these days.
Well, you might actually when it comes to the Kardashians, as they're just certified clowns at this point, but what I'm trying to say is that the jesters of yesteryear aren't so different from the mainstream entertainers we have today, especially since so many of them gleefully occupy the court of their billionaire bosses or the modern day monarchy. Today, the top 1% own 43% of all global financial assets. The big three US-based asset managers BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard hold $20 trillion in assets, close to 1/5 of all investable assets in the world. Internationally, Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani has a net worth of $114 billion and is listed as Forbes' 18th richest person in the world. He's also the richest man in India. His family just had a luxurious $600 million wedding for his son Anant, which was a star-studded event with the Kardashians in tow, along with private performances from Justin Bieber and Rihanna. In the past few years, there's been a push by Saudi Arabian billionaires who control the sovereign wealth fund deemed the Public Investment Fund, which has over $930 billion in it. They've used the money to buy Newcastle United, establish Live Golf to challenge the PGA Tour, and have brought high-profile soccer players playing in Europe to their nation's league, not only to heighten their country's prestige, but for their own entertainment. The current controller of the fund is 39-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, whose father's net worth is $18 billion USD. And it's worked. Cristiano Ronaldo is being paid $200 million USD a year to play for Al Nassr. Neymar is being paid $100 million a year to play for Al Hilal, and Benzema is being paid the same amount at $100 million a year for playing for Al Ittihad, putting Saudi Arabia on the map for millions of soccer fans all over the world. In 2023, Beyonce played a private invite-only concert at Dubai's Palm Jumeirah for $20 million, making Rihanna's $9 million and Bieber's $10 million paychecks from the Ambani wedding pale in comparison. So what's wrong with this? Is there anything wrong with this? Aren't these entertainers free to do what they want? And if the money's good, why not go for it? Art being commissioned, private sporting and concert events, these things are as old as hierarchical society itself. In fact, some of these entertainers are billionaires in their own right. Oprah is signing her own checks now, as one of my patrons noted. It's just a smart business move to rub shoulders with those of a higher class than you. And some might even say, well, actually the clowns are the ones pulling the wool over their boss's eyes by using their celebrity and talents to become just as wealthy as those who hired them out. They're actually the real winners, and we should all aspire to be more like them. But personally, I think it's important to point out that today, much like in medieval times that had a monarchy and jesters, we also have extreme financial and class inequality. These billionaires and their multi-millionaire cohort of entertainers don't exist in a vacuum. We live in a society, believe it or not, where multi-billionaires of the world leech off the working class, and where entertainers are the middlemen.
Obviously, when you get your money from your billionaire, you have to pay the other billionaires, the energy billionaire, the tax billionaire, the insurance billionaire. You have to make sure all your billionaires are paid. But if you've got a bit of money left over after you've paid your billionaires, that's yours, babe. I'm a big football fan, so I like to watch football. For those who don't know how football works, there's this billionaire, but he's different because he owns like a group of millionaires.
The mainstream multi-millionaire to small billionaire entertainer class of musical artists, actors, and athletes, and those of influencer fame, serve a dual purpose under capitalism. The first is to be aspirational for us plebeians. They entertain us, distract us from our problems, help us cope with life through their art, talent, and drive, but also distract us from those with real money or old money in order to keep us complacent. Artistic integrity is put on the back burner when bread and circus will do the trick. No need to keep up with the latest Supreme Court case or union-busting activities or CEOs not paying taxes or the quiet luxury class whose wealth is so old and hidden and so ingrained in the institutions of the world we never see or hear about it. Just focus on what this celebrity did this week. They're like a shield for those who actually influence finance and politics. Though it's important to note that multi-millionaire entertainers do have influence and interest in these realms. As artists in this dual position, they have to be forward and public-facing. They don't have the luxury of being able to be rich without showing their face, unlike those at the very top whose money comes from industry. The nature of their careers as entertainers and spectacles means that their art and athleticism, and at times simply their presence and existence, is what makes them money. Meaning that they have to be just like you, blank slates for you to project on as to not alienate their consumer base, but also for their own personal safety since they're so recognizable, it's in their best interest to be loved rather than reviled. Kind of like a monarch. But in reality, they're not just like you, and some of the wealthiest entertainers have gotten rich by flaunting that aspect about themselves. They're wealthy beyond our wildest dreams. So though on one hand, they have to be just like us and relatable, they also have an obvious political and financial interest in protecting their capital and appeasing those above them, those multi-billionaires who own even more than they do. And they will always have more in common with them than you. So they occupy an interesting position in society in that they have to be accessible to everyone, not just the wider public, but to those in an even higher echelon, to the multi-billionaires who run oil, gas, and tech companies, who then use that money to hire clowns for their children's weddings and private gigs. This group of monarchs and Nouveau Riche aristocracy view the singers and influencers and athletes as fun in-house entertainment and cultural capital, conspicuous consumption for all to see. They can now brag that they had Beyonce come out to do a private concert, or Justin Bieber at their wedding, or Cristiano Ronaldo at their stadium playing for them. Shopee and its owner and billionaire Forrest Lee can get Ronaldo and other celebrities to dance and smile in ads for cheap deliveries and prices, where their workers who make the products suffer and where more and more plastic garbage from toys to clothes end up in landfills, all while being able to say CR7 did this for me. That's how powerful I am. And I honestly wonder what kind of life is that to live on both ends. Like for the monarchy, who can only view these people, many of whom are great artists, as commodities and toys, and for the entertainment class, who are sandwiched in the middle of the top 1% or 0.1% and the rest of humanity. What is life like when you need to be accessible to everyone in order to maintain a luxurious lifestyle? What's it like to be so shameless that you'll clearly do anything for a price and yet be a hero and inspiration to millions of kids and young people around the world? How does it feel to spend your finite moments on earth accruing the most wealth and winning at capitalism because your entire life is now selling out? How can you even begin to make art that way? Is it worth it? These are just some of the questions we'll be diving into in this video. Feel free to answer them down below in the comments, but for now, I just think it's sad that art as democracy, sport as democracy is constantly being challenged under capitalism when we as humans have proven time and time again we can all be bought for a price. It's just really demoralizing. And we'll get into this more deeply later, but I just want to say here that I do sympathize with how hard it is to be in this position of entertainer, as kind of a micro nano entertainer myself, with needing to be open to everyone, especially the public, who at many times are unhinged. I mean, it's a big reason why the entertainment class is clapping back and setting boundaries, which is a good thing, but also helps to prove my point on how broken this system is. Not only can art and artists not work organically when they're worried about their own bottom line and safety, but also the system makes us dehumanize one another. And though this is all true, it also doesn't invalidate the fact that some entertainers are aspirational billionaires, willing to exploit and sell out anyone, including themselves, for money, and how I honestly don't think that should be rewarded, but sadly is. And that shouldn't be something for the public to admire. Becoming a human billboard and part of the new aristocracy isn't something to brag about or should be a life goal. It should be shamed. And I'm part of the system as an entertainer online. My work cannot be free because I too need money to put food on the table and pay my student loan debts, and therefore my videos run ads. I took a sponsorship, I have a patron. As much as I wish money didn't matter, it obviously does, and that's part of the world we live in. So in this video, we'll delve into the modern aristocracy and how and why the popular entertainers of today are more similar to court jesters than you might think, but also how at least the court jesters of yore were hired at times to speak truth to power, unlike those today who jump at the opportunity to make a quick buck, even if it costs them their integrity, not to mention the impact they have on those below them. Like I mentioned earlier, these spectacles don't exist in a vacuum. We'll also be talking about the artistic implications of this late-stage capitalist entertainment landscape, what it means to sell out when your aspirational lifestyle goes too far, and how art and sportsmanship have been commodified to such a degree that it's hard to not feel cynical about the things that are supposed to make life more beautiful. So without further ado, let's go. Like I said in the intro, the rich having private entertainment is nothing new. From the kings and queens of Europe to the emperors and empresses in China, all forms of aristocracy have hired entertainers, from high-class acts to low-brow showmen, from trained opera singers and orchestras to jousters and jesters. These types of entertainment would be brought out to court during special occasions, festivals, birthdays, and other celebrations, but for the purpose of this video, I want to talk about jesters. Jesters, at least in Western Europe, historically were of a lower class that were hired by nobility as forms of low-brow popular entertainment. A king's gotta laugh too, you know. They could be a fixture at court and during the off-season work as servants. Some were even hired to be private personal jesters of noblemen and monarchs, but others were part of nomadic entertainment groups or fool societies that were hired to entertain the public during seasonal holidays, and many weren't permanent fixtures at court, as noblemen and even kings did not throw daily banquets, and besides, listening to the same fool or jocular every night of the year would have become tedious, so medieval jesters only performed occasionally. The rest of the year they were expected to carry out other duties in the household. If they were part of a nobleman's household, such as being keeper of the hounds or traveling to markets to buy livestock to feed the family, their servants, and their men-at-arms. Jesters would make fart jokes, juggle, make bawdy quips, and even mock guests, as they had a joker's privilege in that all they said was to be taken in jest. Get it? Additionally, the crown and scepter costume was a reference to their boss, as jesters were a type of perverted or bastardization of the monarchy. They wore a crown and held a scepter, but wrong, see? They used these tools to mock authority. Some went into the profession specifically because they were poor and had little options, others were more educated, and at times some were disabled or disfigured, and the aristocracy either took pity on them or wanted to keep them around to mock them until they got bored. Fools were also popular entertainment in that they performed at festivals for the masses, but also personally for the monarchy. Both King Edward II and Edward III of England had a succession of fools and called them all Robert regardless of their real names. However, by the 13th century, some talented jesters were beginning to achieve superstar status. Tom the Fool, or Tom the Fool, performed at the marriage feast of Edward I's daughter Elizabeth and was given a fee of 50 shillings. This was a fortune since a skilled thatcher could expect to earn only 2.5 pence a day, and you could buy a goose for 1.5 pence. Jesters, like today's modern fools, occupied a precarious position in society in that they entertained both the commoner and the wealthy, spoke for the everyday man, and could even criticize the nobility, were prized for their wit and jokes, and could even make fart jokes, for example. Due to their lowly status and profession, they were allowed to break social rules, and at times were financially rewarded for it, but were always seen as lesser and even disposable. Fools who were part of a nobleman's or king's household were often required to go to the battlefield with their masters to carry messages between the leaders of warring armies, demanding that a city surrender to a besieging army, or delivering terms for the release of hostages. Unfortunately for the jesters, the enemy did sometimes kill the messenger as an act of defiance, especially if they regarded the terms being offered as an insult, and some used a catapult or trebuchet to hurl the unfortunate messenger or his severed head back into his own camp as a graphic illustration of what they thought of the message. Writers of the time would also romanticize the profession of jesters because they fascinated the nobility. How could someone with such lowly profession and class status also possess an astuteness and ability to read a room better than a king? I think the romanticized Shakespearean fool, for example in King Lear, entertained the monarchy, and even actors who played the fool in Queen Elizabeth's court became mini celebrities like Richard Tarleton and Robert Armin, because the character held up a mirror to themselves. It was interesting, but not in a way that would ever dare challenge the status quo and their divine right to rule. Only as the lowliest member of the court can a jester be the monarch's most useful advisor. Isn't it ironic? Like, yeah, these fools sure are smart and can see more than us monarchs. It's good to keep people around who will challenge us and make us think, but not actually come for our throne. So in a way, the fool or jester in literature was a romanticized version of what it was in real life. Usually a poor fellow who had some privileges with being close with noblemen, but like in Parasite, had to be careful not to cross the line. And when it comes to this analogy of modern popular entertainers being similar to court jesters, fools, buffoons, and clowns, I mean it in a few ways. Firstly, jesters entertain both classes. Even kings need to laugh and find fart jokes funny. Jesters were accessible to all classes, much like how popular mainstream athletes and artists are today. Secondly, jesters are lowbrow entertainment. They're not just accessible to all classes price-wise, in that they perform at both large public venues and small private ones, but their craft is easily understood across the classes. Witticism, physical comedy, juggling is universally understood, just as soccer, music, movies, and even lifestyle content and reality shows are enjoyable for almost everyone. The main highlights of the Ambani wedding were popular singers that are household names, the Backstreet Boys, Katy Perry, Pitbull, etc. And back in 2018, Beyonce and John Legend performed at Isha Ambani's wedding celebrations. I guess the most unknown singer, in quotes, at the wedding in 2024 was the final artist, Andrea Bocelli, an Italian tenor. And when I say unknown, I mean a singer that many might consider highbrow and pretentious, and that isn't a household name to most people. At least I had to Google who that was. It could be a Nouveau Riche thing, which we'll get into later, but for now, I think it's interesting how the jester tradition is continuing in the modern age. How, though the old rich might turn up their noses at this ostentatious BS and only indulge in music so elite that we've never heard of it, so we can't gawk and awe at their wealth, and they wouldn't want us to anyway, the new rich are fine in saying, yes, we too like popular music and celebrities and are going to rub them in our faces, even though we as commoners honestly don't care and also see it as ostentatious BS. Maybe it humanizes the mega rich in a way for some, like hashtag wedding goals, and maybe that was also part of what jesters were in the Middle Ages, humanizing kings and noblemen. They actually listen to us commoners. And also, we enjoy lowbrow entertainment too, as long as they wear ridiculous clothing and serve us. I don't know, but what I do know is that Kim Kardashian has been fine being a stooge for the rich and famous since she was Paris's assistant, and being friends with the Ambani family can't hurt, especially considering there's rumors of her wanting to sell products in India, yet another market for her to try to exploit. And though the jester analogy is very similar to the kind of class system we have today, haven't things changed? It's not like billionaire Jay-Z and Beyonce are strapped for cash. Rihanna's a billionaire in her own right. Ronaldo and Neymar, they're getting paid to sit on a beach, make ads, and have more money than they'll ever know what to do with. The jesters aren't servants anymore, they're entrepreneurs and influencers. So are the jokers having the last laugh? And I guess to an extent, they've beat capitalism at its own game in that these billionaires are coming to them for their products, bodies, talents, and art. And not only that, but they get to live a life in luxury. But what does that say about them as artists and athletes and as people? That they can be bought for a price, that they're fine entertaining people who are responsible for genocides and wars. And while inequality has decreased between countries, according to the World Inequality Report of 2022, inequalities increased significantly within countries. The gap between the average income of the top 10% and the bottom 50% within countries has almost doubled from 8.5 to 15. This strong rise of inequalities within countries has meant that despite economic catch-up and strong growth in the emerging world, the world remains particularly unequal today. It has also meant that inequalities within countries are now even larger than the strong inequalities that are observed between countries. It's worth noting that the global top 1% includes, in recent decades, a relatively large fraction of people from the Middle East, Latin America, and Russia. In effect, these regions play a substantially bigger role in the global top 1% than in the global top 10%, reflecting the fact that their rates of within-country inequality are very high. It's also been noted that the Sudanese genocide is being fueled by the UAE and that they're reaping economic rewards. Since 2015, the UAE has sourced fighters from both factions of the Sudanese civil war to join its conflict in Yemen. It's the primary importer of Sudan's gold and has multi-billion-dollar plans to develop ports along Sudan's Red Sea coast. By supporting the RSF in Sudan, it has undermined the democratic transition that followed the 2019 ouster of Omar al-Bashir, Sudan's dictator of 30 years. Saudi Arabia's intervention in Yemen has included massive airstrikes. Over a third have targeted civilian areas, including hospitals, homes, markets, schools, and mosques, directly killing over 12,000 civilians. Only half of hospitals continue to operate. Saudi naval blockades have cut off food supplies. Thousands of children have died of starvation. A cholera epidemic afflicted 800,000 civilians and killed thousands. 80% of the population depends on humanity relief. The Yemeni Archive and Oxfam report that the Saudi-led coalition has systemically destroyed 130 bridges essential for delivery of human aid. Houthis have also prevented food and aid from reaching populations in areas they control. At least 233,000 civilians have died in Yemen's civil war. And this is all for the Saudis to consolidate power for oil, specifically Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's power, the guy who controls the PIF. He wants control over Yemen to allow Saudi Arabia to construct an oil pipeline from its southern border through Yemen's eastern province, Al-Mara, into the Indian Ocean. The pipeline would ease Saudi Arabia's dependence on shipping oil through the Strait of Hormuz, which borders Iran. When it comes to India, between 2015 and 2023, the rise of top-end inequality has been particularly pronounced in terms of wealth concentration. By 2023, the top 1% own 58% of wealth, while the richest 10% of Indians own 80% of the wealth. In the US, as of 2023, the top 1% of American households own 30% of the net worth, or 30 cents of every dollar. The total net worth of the top 1% in the US was $43 trillion in 2023. The U.S. is also home to the most billionaires in the world by a wide margin, more than twice the number of the next highest country in the world, China. And you might say, well, these entertainers don't influence politics, they're not responsible for the income gap, but aren't they, as again, billionaires in their own right, as multimillionaires who could go into retirement right now and don't need to take these multi-billionaires' money? The problem is that they've created a lifestyle that they cannot afford if they don't cater to the mega rich. They have families depending on them, employees, companies, private jets, giant houses, and like I said in the intro, they're so public-facing that they need protection from the many people who honestly probably have it out for them. More money, more problems. Some artists have turned down concerts in Dubai like MacLeod, but it's happening everywhere. And I do want to say here that it's easy to fearmonger and be racist and xenophobic against countries in the Middle East and South Asia and to paint them as other and not like us. And it's even worse than the US because they're non-white, foreign, and non-Christian. And I want to say that that's not right, nor what I'm trying to do here. It's easy to take the attention off of the US and point to how, well, Saudi Arabia is manipulating the world and we're so much better than them, because we're not. In fact, we're equally as complicit in the horrors of the world. But I also want to emphasize that it's not a good thing that more of the world's billionaires are reveling in being the new oppressors. Some may cheer that the Middle East has been trying to colonize European soccer, giving them a taste of their own medicine, and there are serious problems with FIFA and the world of competitive soccer in general, but I don't think multi-billionaires taking over the globe is a good thing just because they're from an area that's been historically shit upon by Europe and the US. All billionaires are bad, ethical billionaires don't exist. No country nor individual should have that kind of power, and yet here we are. In the end, entertainment under late-stage capitalism, where we watch multi-millionaires play for us, sing to us, perform for us, show off their luxury lifestyles, etc., just makes me sad for the state of entertainment, which is also linked to art, as entertainment is never just entertainment. What we enjoy for leisure to make life on this planet more bearable reflects who we are, and art imitates life and vice versa. And in general, it's hard for me personally to find leisure and enjoyment in someone's work when I know how wealthy they're becoming, not only through their own entertainment ventures, but by creating product lines, possibly exploiting workers to do so, and using unethical means to boost their bottom lines, or by promoting some billionaire's product or service just to keep up their celebrity lifestyle they've grown accustomed to. No entertainer and no person, period, should be a multi-millionaire, let alone a billionaire. That's not to say that their craft isn't important. Art and sports help us make sense of the world around us, but rather, do they really need to be paid that much? Should anyone? Under late-stage capitalism, an entertainer's value isn't based on merit or skill set, but rather on how much product they can move, how much they can trick us into buying into conspicuous consumption, and whether or not billionaires can show them off to their friends and the public at large. Hence why celebrity influencers making short 15-second videos are thriving under the current late-stage capitalist hellscape. It's the final boss, the inevitable conclusion of entertainment under this economic model. Commercials.
Son of a bitch.
And of course, I'm not the first Zoomer to realize that life is just one long advertisement, but I think it should make us more angry than it is. And I know entertainment under capitalism has never been free from money, free of selling out, but it's just gotten to a point under late-stage capitalism that it's become so unenjoyable and so unauthentic and so overproduced. The facade of humanization of celebrities disappears for me when I see someone do this for Shopee or other various corporations, whether it be low-end fast fashion brands, platforms like Shein or Temu, or even high-end Versace. It's all the same. And yeah, I think it's not pronounced Versace. I think it's Versace. Anyway, buy this, experience the brand, and you too can feel rich. And I know we as the public can also be toxic and view entertainers and artists and athletes as commodities, just like the mega rich, and that's not right. Parasocial relationships. But at the same time, when it comes to class, they're still part of the rich. And therefore, when it comes to their class status, that should be questioned. And again, this doesn't mean that they deserve abuse, but rather listen to the common folk. Listen to your fans when they say, no, don't take money from billionaires who only want to use you. Or don't perform for people who get their money from war and murder and exploitation. And don't become a capitalist yourself and twist it into some great entrepreneurial narrative. In the end, there's really no such thing as an ethical billionaire or an ethical multi-millionaire. Today we live in a world where millionaires are telling us to buy a billionaire's product, where we get to experience a brand but not have time off for our 40-hour work week to experience our loved ones. Doesn't being a sellout who's so desperate for money corrupt their art, their sportsmanship, their own morals as human beings? On the other hand, they gotta spend money to make money. Sell out to continue to grow. That's what capitalism is. You always need more, never be satisfied, never stop working. And that's not demonized in society, that's inspirational. But to me, that's the antithesis of what art and sport is supposed to be. Art is supposed to be something that's organic, that comes from a place of authenticity and vulnerability. You can't make art on a schedule. But capitalism has corrupted that and turned people, their bodies, talents, and hard work into commodities. And it's sad for the entertainers, the musicians, actors, comedians, athletes, that they have to sell out to do what they love, and how there's very limited space to create challenging art when you live in a society that rewards and incentivates those who are the least confrontational to the status quo. At the same time, how much of these people love their craft, be it sports or art, when they're seemingly okay with doing anything for money? What does that say to the masses who consume their work, who are fans of them both as people and artists? F you got mine? They're perhaps victims of the system, but only to an extent. It varies from person to person, but in my opinion, influencers whose job it is to sell you a lifestyle and contribute nothing to society other than buy this are digging their own grave. But inevitably, that also encompasses high-profile multi-millionaire athletes and A-list celebrities and self-made billionaires who continue to put profits before anything else. There are many entertainers out there who would rather please their billionaire overlords than their millions of plebeian fans. And I do think we should question that and sit with the fact that this is the entertainment landscape today, at least in the mainstream, where entertainers have been turned into influencers first and where art and sport can't be enjoyed and made without thinking about money. I guess Jessie J and B.O.B. were right. I'm not trying to demonize people for enjoying going to sporting events, following sports, going to concerts, watching TV series and movies. We all live in a society and take part in that kind of stuff. This channel and video is mainly to look at things that we see as fluff more deeply, because it's not just fluff. Like, we can enjoy things, but let's not take it too far. Before I end this section, I do want to say that there are artists and athletes out there who are more picky about their sponsorships, or who even only take sponsorships because they don't get paid as much as their white male counterparts. Additionally, some people need to take corporate sponsorships, specifically small influencers from the lower class, because they want to use the internet fame as a way to get out of the lower class. Soccer enthusiast and comedian Nouveau from Brazil comes to mind, whose Instagram blew up a few years ago. He took the money and ran because it's an offer many of us can't refuse. Though that's predatory, as companies can take advantage of those who are poor with large followings by dangling promises of easy money. It's just a shitty system all around. But obviously in this video, I'm mainly just talking about a select group of popular mass entertainment acts and people who have accumulated mountains of capital and would have no problem turning down opportunities. There are still those out there who create art because they love it and it's part of who they are, and don't let outside corporate interests influence what kind of things they make or where they take their life. But in this capitalist hellscape, doing it because you love it isn't going to put food on the table, and unfortunately that's by design. So I don't fault people for trying to become entrepreneurs or taking sponsorships, but when you reach a certain point of wealth, taking unnecessary money from dubious places should be ridiculed, especially if you're in that multi-millionaire, small billionaire bracket. Like, come on. I'd also think we'd be better off supporting our local community theater troupe, comedy shows, and bands, and though they might not be Instagrammable or star-studded, it's still a valid form of entertainment. I remember in college going to so many plays and shows on campus because I was in the college bubble where I could walk to everything or take the campus bus. My friends are right down the hall. But now, as a working adult and parent, finding the time to go to community entertainment events in my area is next to impossible. So I get why we scroll endlessly through those 15-second videos as our main form of entertainment as adults. Life is really hard right now for a lot of us, and we just want to sit in bed and brain rot. That's what capitalism does. It beats you down. But because of that, I also think maybe we could make more of a concerted effort to check out what's happening outside of streamers and social networks and see what's happening at the community college and even local public libraries and schools. They host events that aren't done by kids but by adults, like host a local adult jazz band or orchestra at the public high school. Many of you said to also support small YouTubers who are accessible from anywhere, and to support those with diverse voices as a way to get entertainment outside of watching reel after reel, and I'd like to shout out some of them now that I like watching. Firstly, there's Aisho, who makes deep dives into pop culture phenomena like anime and fantasy series. There's also Jessie Gender, who makes content about sci-fi and fantasy works. Next, there's Lola Sebastian, who takes in-depth looks into everything from Call Me By Your Name to, more recently, Sweeney Todd. So go check them out if you haven't already. To conclude, the wealthy do have a responsibility to the public, whether they're entertainers or not, because they would not be where they are without us, without our labor, without our love. And sure, some might say they're just entertainers, who cares, what can they do? And to that I have two things to say. Firstly, like I mentioned earlier, art and entertainment are inseparable from one another. Just because something's entertainment doesn't mean it can't be or shouldn't be examined, because many times art reflects who we are, and we reflect art. Secondly, multi-millionaires and billionaire entertainers may not hold office, but these celebrities should be held accountable because they have a clear biased interest in hoarding and keeping their wealth that should not be concentrated so tightly around the top 10%. I'd also like to say, if art is sacred and something to be treasured, if it's something that makes us human, we shouldn't let it be polluted by capital and billionaire interests. It shouldn't have to be something that's sold to a wealthy patron or even sold to the masses as a product, but just done for personal fulfillment, and it will find an audience. But that could only be a reality if we didn't live under capitalism. For this part of the video, I'd briefly like to entertain the idea that this new money class of entertainers have won at capitalism and therefore life. That they've outsmarted the billionaire bosses by making them pay to be in their presence rather than the other way around. For example, the Kardashians are famous for doing nothing, for being blank slates with very little opinions about anything and being canvases for brands to paint on. And by doing so, accrued their own mass fortune and created their own brands that they now have influencers and celebrities working for them. They've seemingly won the game by proving to the world that you can be famous and rich for contributing nothing to society. Kind of like an aristocracy, except they're self-made. In reality, they did come from money, but definitely have a lot more of it now than when they were growing up. You'd think that this would be a cautionary tale to society. Like, for a while people did rightfully call them out for their grift, but they turned the narrative of themselves around and now they're entrepreneurs and suddenly they're smart businesswomen. Thankfully today they've kind of faded into obscurity, though I'm sure some millennials will be keeping up with them for a while. I mean, clearly Radhika Merchant is a Kardashian fan. When it comes to Georgina, Cristiano Ronaldo's wife, who has her own Keeping Up with the Kardashian type show on Netflix, she's following in mother's footsteps. She's a blank slate for brands, her job is to sell products, her lavish lifestyle, and that's about it. And I don't care how many relatable stories she tells of her life growing up and working in retail. When she met Ronaldo at 22 and has been living in luxury for the past 8 years of her adult life. Not to mention she's not transparent about how she does it all. In the show, she's always talking about how she doesn't know how she's able to raise 5 kids. And it's like, you have a nanny, you have support, you have private chefs and trainers. And she does show her trainer, like her gym trainer, but none of the help that she has with the kids. And she says she just doesn't know how she does it. I will say it's sad. You know, they've had misfortune in their life. Recently, she suffered the death of one of her twins who was stillborn. At the same time, that's totally unrelated to the fact that they're still hoarding wealth and are greedy capitalists who are obsessed with conspicuous consumption and basically being walking billboards. Some may say good for them, they're taking money away from the Saudis, they're playing them at their own game, and it's like, are they though? How is Ronaldo's family taking their money away by making them more money and by making himself more money? By selling more merchandise? How is Georgina showcasing Saudi Arabia in tourist-like vlogs on her Netflix special, hitting them where it hurts? The same with our Kardashians. All they have proven is how entertainment under late-stage capitalism is just one big joke on us, the millions of viewers. Through the past few decades of reality TV, short-form content, and remakes, entertainment conglomerates have realized that they can make billions of dollars off sequel after sequel, and can get away with lazy writing and final products because we've proven we'll buy into anything. Entertainment, the popular art we consume, need not be authentic or challenging because we've all been primed to just want to be rich and drool over luxury. And why? Because most of us want to escape from our lives that have been so drained due to capitalism and bullshit jobs. All people want to do now is brain rot because of how tiring living has become, and we're purposely tired out to not have enough energy to fight the powers that be, to demand better. Though of course not everyone wants to brain rot, and challenging art still exists and is popular. But generally I'd say most of us just want our comfort show at the end of a long day. And honestly, that's streaming services' bread and butter. Those long-form dramas and sitcoms of yesteryear, not the exclusive content, because those get cancelled after 2 seasons and take years to come out. And again, I don't fault us for wanting to stay comfortable, because life today couldn't be scarier. AI art has taken over holiday ads because we no longer have control over the means of production. Art, entertainment, sports, it's all out of our hands, and in the hands of those few winners, and of course, the super billionaires. But I will say one thing. These multimillionaires and billionaires of all professions may have won the capitalist game, but they're not winning at life. These people, these entertainers specifically, are living shells. There's nothing going on underneath the surface. They're all hollow. And I have to know, is being a living ghost worth it to win at capitalism? To just be okay with doing anything for money? Is it worth it when you already have so much of it? To use your finite moments on this planet, accruing the most capital, ignoring the world's suffering, only to know you're going to die? Is it worth being the best, being number one, when you still clearly will take blood money from billionaires many times over? How authentic can your brand be? Can your art be, when it can be so easily had? How do you sleep at night? What about art for the common people? Art, primarily music, film, and even sporting events, are all forms of popular entertainment for the masses and for those of higher status. And access to these forms of entertainment and art has gotten better and better through the years. I mean, the Globe Theatre revolutionized the stage play experience in Western Europe, specifically in England, as groundling tickets were only 1 pence, though you couldn't sit down and were packed in the middle of a bunch of people. With the internet age, anyone with an internet connection can access the entire world at their fingertips. On the other hand, you need to have an internet connection, which many people may not have. You also have to pay for 5 different streamers and subscribe to a music platform to even get access to entertainment, as physical media has all but been erased in a few short decades. Even websites that were supposed to be forever have disappeared. Concert tickets generally have risen in prices, same with Broadway tickets, and even Disney and American Girl entertainment for children are pricing out families to cater to wealthy clientele. Sporting events continue to be accessible to fans, but oddly enough, the World Cup and the World Cup of Clubs will both be in the US in 2025 and 2026, a country that could care less about soccer and that only wealthy fans will be able to access, though I guess that's usually the case with these global sporting events. But though entertainment is as widely available as ever, it feels like it's been extremely diluted in recent years, with social media platforms focusing on short, addictive 15-second videos that are mostly just secret ads, streamers focusing on reboot after spin-off when it comes to movies and TV series, and though music is having a pretty cool resurgence, specifically with pop music, we're also living in a culture where things have become very divided, and when it's hard to have shared entertainment moments. Today, there's very little in terms of a monoculture. Everything is dictated by the For You page, by algorithms and AI, and it's hard to connect with people in real life who may not have any idea who you're talking about or what you're talking about because they've been fed their own curated timeline of singers, songs, celebrities, movie and TV show skits, etc. And though that sounds good in theory, you'll get music and movies catered to you, it also continues to again further isolate us from one another and reduce any sense of camaraderie, even when it comes to entertainment and art, communal experiences. Back in the day when there was more of a monoculture, when you only had access to entertainment on TV, or when the person doing the entertaining had to be in the room with you before radio and records, you would enjoy a communal bonding experience, sitting in front of the TV at a certain time, listening to the radio, putting on a record for all to hear because headphones weren't invented yet, or playing the piano in the living room. But that's all but been done away with. Like, TV is trying to make a comeback, but it's hard when people have canceled their cable subscriptions and replaced it with streaming. The democratization of the internet has been ruined by capitalism and corporate interests. Ads trump everything, and ads are now entertainment because social media apps have made everyone's attention span last only 15 seconds. Shout out if you made it to the end of this video. And that just makes me sad because entertainment isn't just entertainment. It's not just fluff. It's art. Even the lamest sitcom and poppiest pop beat helps us make sense of the world. And when entertainment is at its best, it can challenge our perception of the world, how we think. But how can entertainment like that get to us when all we're shown is stuff to make us more addicted and to placate our brains into a numb sense of brain rot? And I can't help but feel like this is a conspiracy by the tech billionaires of the world to make us more divided and less likely to fight back against our corporate overlords. Let's not only work these people to the bone, let's also try to dumb them down as much as possible so they have no way of gaining class consciousness. But I'm not going to let that happen, and you shouldn't either. And honestly, we're a lot smarter than these rich assholes think. In the end, the fact that the super ultra wealthy aren't accountable for fixing the world's problems will never cease to disgust me. The top 4 richest billionaires are from the US, and none of them care about anything else but themselves. They're either building a luxury doomsday bunker or researching ways to leave Earth because everyone hates them and they know it, and also because they could care less about humanity and the Earth. Again, they only care about themselves. When it comes to billionaires outside the US, they'd rather waste their money on clowns and jesters than to try to fix inequality in their own country. And they pay for these multi-millionaire clowns with blood money that they happily accept. And then the jesters turn around and give us common folk some songs, some bread and circus to help us through our dreary lives, and we're supposed to pay for arena tickets and care about their personal lives. Pass. That's the art they think we deserve, but we deserve so much more. Everyone deserves art free from capitalism, but sadly, under the current system, the artists and athletes that get the most rewarded are ones who have no opinions, other than to become capitalists themselves, and they should all be shamed for it. So that's the end of this video. I made this just to get my own thoughts about the mainstream entertainment hellscape out, and also to really pose a question to the entertainer multi-millionaire class, not like they're watching this, but are you happy with yourselves, being a shell of a person? How does that make you feel? Honestly, what a sad way to live. But I also want to add that though the jesters are a big part of the problem, we shouldn't forget about the mega rich billionaires who are killing the planet and are getting rich from exploiting millions of workers worldwide. They're funding wars, genocides, and they're the ones accumulating and distributing blood money, and that will never be forgotten. I just wanted to start the conversation about entertainers because they're supposed to be good people. They're supposed to be on our side, making art and entertainment for us commoners. But of course, power reveals, and it's not a pretty picture. Not for the jesters or the monarchs. And I don't want to romanticize the past too much, but when it comes to entertainment, I think I'd rather take a standing spot at the Globe Theater rather than doom scrolling or just scrolling through my curated Instagram feed. But that's just me. I went back home for the first time in a while, and the local movie theater closed down. And it actually made me more upset than I thought it would. It just signals an end of communal entertainment, these kind of moments that we could have with other people. So let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you to my patrons. Bye.